Douglas, you're making news again, not just writing and commenting on the headlines, but in the thick of it, thanks to a rather robust discussion you had on Joe Rogan's podcast. It's been the talk of X and elsewhere for days. There was a clash between yourself and Dave Smith, and you even took on the man who has the biggest audience, the biggest podcast audience in the world, Joe Rogan, on his own show.
I just feel, we should get it out straight away, I feel you've opened the door to quite a lot of people who've now got a big platform who have been throwing out counter-historical stuff of a very dangerous kind.
Douglas, you've had plenty of people praising your performance and agreeing with you, but there has also been criticism from those who say you are trying to silence debate and appealing to authority. You're appealing to the expert class, they say, and the expert class hasn't exactly been reliable of late.
Well, I conceded all of that in the discussion on Joe's podcast. I conceded that experts have got things wrong. Look at COVID and the lab leak. And I also said, I certainly am not shutting down debate. I'm involved in debate, so why would I be shutting it down? What I do believe, and what I think many people have completely failed to absorb, is the fact that just because the expert class has let itself down in places on occasion does not mean that lack of expertise is more desirable than expertise. And it does not mean that we should just have other ways of knowing about things that can be known about. The counterpart who Joe Rogan brought in for that debate seemed to think that, for instance, not going to a place that you're talking about was in some way a desirable thing. Whereas I, as a journalist, you as a journalist know that if we cover a story in a country, for instance, when you were covering the American election in 2020, as I was, you were in America. Why were you in America? Because you were covering the American elections. And if you'd have been just sitting in Australia covering the American elections, that wouldn't have had the validity that it does if you are in the country you are writing about. I think this is a deliberate misunderstanding by people. Let me very quickly explain why. Joe Rogan is a big MMA guy. I probably know, or you probably know about as much about MMA as I do. You might surprise me, Rita. But if either of us went on his podcast and decided to spend the 3 hours talking about MMA, we would be found out pretty fast as not knowing what we were talking about. And at some point, Joe would cotton on to that. And he would say, I'm sorry, you seem not to know about this subject. Well, that's because it's a subject he knows a lot about. My simple point is that there is something very different happening if a host's platform repeatedly cranks with the same opinion as each other on very, very important questions and do not allow on contrary views, or very rarely. For instance, to not have somebody on who is supportive of Ukraine as opposed to highly, highly critical of Ukraine since 22 seems to me to be a big issue. To say that, for instance, you spent the last 18 months highlighting, promoting, giving a platform to anti-Israel voices and just never or almost never or accidentally giving a platform to anyone who's anti-Hamas and pro-Israel seems to me to be a major failing. And I just wanted to call it out because it's something I see. And I think a lot of other people see it and are equally concerned about it. But as I say, on issues like MMA fighting or anything else, people would notice there was something strange going on if guests were turning up who didn't know what they were talking about. And I submit that when you get pseudo-historians on talking, for instance, about Churchill and claiming that Adolf Hitler wasn't openly anti-Semitic in the 1930s, but that Winston Churchill was the cause of the Second World War, I would submit you are entering very dangerous territory if you leave such ideas out there and leave them out unchallenged. So I'm all for the debate, But what I see in certain realms of the right is not actually a debate.